Joe Weeks.
We're like JoJo, the idiot circus boy with a pretty new pet. and with that Chris Farley quote, let's dive right in to our very next episode of Who Virgin. What are we now? Are we 23? Oh my gosh, we're 23. Nobody likes you when you're 23, guys.
Nobody does, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's terrible. But this week we're going to talk about Torchwood, Children of Earth, and there's been a lot that's happened in the last couple weeks, so we're going to talk some Doctor Who news, some celebrity sightings in Cardiff, and then we're going to talk about Fantastic Four and Shaun the Sheep, and then we'll talk about Doctor Who, but we're going to do all of those real quick first. Mark, let's all introduce ourselves real quick. Of course, I'm Andy Wilson, the not so Who Virgin anymore. Mark?
Straight out of Brownsville. Me. I'm trying to do my straight out of Compton.
Straight out of Brownsville. Crazy mother.
I think Brownsville's a little worse than Compton.
Please never do that again, Marco. Never.
No, if these guys had to live in Brownsville for any amount of time, yeah, they would have felt my pain.
That's better than me. I'd be like straight out of Provo. That's not.
Yeah, no, that's way too white.
That's way worse. You know, they did a study. They did a statistical study of metropolitan areas in the United States, and Provo-Orem, Utah, is the most unlike any other major metropolitan area in the entire country, primarily because it is so white. There are like zero non-white people in Provo-Orem, and it is awful and oppressive.
How awesome would an NWA concert be in Provo?
Oh my gosh, NWA! Like this is why like NWA and Dre and Snoop were like the scariest thing possible to my parents. Like I was out at buying CDs at a store. I was gonna pick up a Beatles album, and I joked to my dad that I was gonna get Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style instead, and he went like ash white. Like listening to NWA or Tupac or something would have just like freaked people the heck out. Anyway, we'll talk about Straight Outta Compton next week. Melissa, thanks again for joining us.
Yes.
And always being there to correct us about how Brownsville and Provo are not cool. You know what is cool is Cardiff. Straight out of Cardiff.
Yeah.
Oh no.
No?
No.
It's totally street. No, they'd be all like grimy, like Lady Shiesty and Lady Sovereign and the Streets and those guys.
Oh, Jesus. We're gonna get hate, man.
No, that's good stuff.
Well, that's good stuff.
No, I love that stuff. Lady Sovereign, that's the bomb.
Well, the English like dumping on the Welsh.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. No, but I'm just saying Cardiff is cool. I mean, maybe the English don't agree with me, but I'm down with Cardiff.
They don't.
Yeah. So, please, English people listening to this podcast, please send me your hate mail. I will take it.
Let us know who you are first.
Yeah, well, we're used to offending New Zealanders, but we'll add.
We're expanding our horizons.
I think we should be equal opportunity offenders and just take turns with different countries.
Okay, let's pick a country at random who we should offend.
Austria.
Austria?
Yeah.
I love Crocodile Dundee. That's a great movie, Austria.
Put the Vienna sausage on the barbie.
Yeah. You're the best Nazi collaborators ever. Thanks.
Thanks for rolling over in WW2.
Yep.
You bastards.
We love you. Okay, so please send all of your hate mail from Vienna to me, and please also send me a plane ticket to Vienna, and I will be happy to come and apologize.
Nice. I would actually like to eat Vienna sausage in Vienna.
Hey, isn't Vienna where the opera was that in Mission Impossible, the new Mission Impossible?
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Mission Impossible yet.
I've seen a lot of movies since the last time. I saw that. I saw, well, Fantastic Four. I saw Trainwreck,
Oh,
finally.
I love Trainwreck.
Yes.
That was great. What the hell else did I see? There was like one other movie I saw. I forget what it was.
Vacation?
The what?
Did you see Vacation?
No,
No?
no. I had tickets, but I ended up not going. I haven't gone to any of the movies I had tickets for because it's hot and they make you wait outside. And I'm like, screw this. It's 102 degrees outside. I'm not waiting. I'm like the palest Mexican on the planet. I burn, you
If I
know.
had to if I had to wait in line for a lot of these movies that I go see is for like press screenings, yeah, I wouldn't go.
Well,
But
if my nephews want to go, then I'll do it.
But
But
it's been a lackluster summer. I haven't
it
seen a
kind of has, hasn't it?
right. Yeah, it's been a while since we've
I've
had a
only
summer this bad.
I've only truly enjoyed like maybe two movies. I think Trainwreck and Ant-Man were the only ones I really had fun.
I think it's because the summer got really, really front loaded. Mad Max was
Was
awesome,
fantastic. Yeah.
and just nothing has lived up to it since then. Like there have been other good movies, but it's really hard. Like as good as Ant-Man was, I just yeah, it's hard to go up against Mad Max. So there we
Yeah.
go. Well, let's oh,
Go
I'm
back to movies.
go back. We'll come back to movies in a second. I want to go back to Cardiff, because we had celebrity sightings on the streets of Cardiff. Who was seen there, Mark?
David Tennant and Mr. Russell T Davies.
So the theory goes that they were shopping for engagement.
Socks. There's the
Oh,
Welsh socks, probably.
yeah.
Well, the cool news is the big rumor, and it hasn't been confirmed at all, but most of us Whovians are pretty sure, is that Tennant is back to film as number 10, and they're going to connect the Pompeii episode with the current Doctor. Because as we spoke about this in the previous podcast, that Russell T Davies had a plan to bring Peter Capaldi as the next Doctor and tie him to Pompeii and to John Frobisher from Torchwood season 3, and it was all going to be explained as to why he had the incarnation as the Doctor. It didn't happen the first season of Peter Capaldi, but there was a conversation that Moffat had with Davies, and he said, remember that idea you had? Will it still work? Davies said yes, and then all of a sudden we see them in Cardiff filming something, and we're all pretty sure we're finally going to get the connection.
Here's my question though. The picture that got tweeted out, Tennant had like 4 to 5 days scruff on there, so he
You take
wasn't
a razor,
looking.
buddy.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it could have been before filming, but I'm, I'm just saying, if it doesn't happen, we shouldn't like let our hearts get burst.
I will set Cardiff on fire if this doesn't happen.
You
Like
hear
if
that,
that,
Cardiff?
yeah, in the entire Cardiff, I'll light the rift itself because I know there's a real rift there. But I'm pretty sure there's no reason for David Tennant to just be hanging around. Like I'm pretty sure they brought him over, and then plus Davies was there. This is all his idea, so I'm pretty sure it's gonna work out that way. It
Or
better, it better.
or we'll just keep talking about Cardiff as if it was Compton. Then people will,
Straight out the Cardiff.
they'll burn it down themselves. I think that's a really cool idea. I hope it works out, especially having just seen this season. Yeah, let's find out that mystery of Capaldi. I mean, it'll be a little bit like less consequential for me because I haven't been waiting 5, 6 years to figure this out. I'll have waited like 6 weeks, but still, it'll be cool if that happens. What was not cool when it happens, we've been pretty chill on this Fantastic Four reboot for a while. I think we've mentioned several times how we're a little bit concerned about it. I always maintained I had high hopes for it because I liked Josh Trank in Chronicle, and Mark, you did
No,
not.
like, mm-mm.
Yeah, I think you were right. This was not a good movie. I was very disappointed in it. I feel like I was watching a movie that was like somewhat similar to but legally distinct from the Fantastic Four. It's like they were the Fantastic Four in name only, but like in terms of character and theme and all of that, it just was completely off. The action was not cool. The science was not sciency or fun. There there was no good banter. There was no sense of family. Yeah. My colleague Adam McDonald from Big Shiny Robot gave it a 0 out of 10. I won't go that far. I was kind of in the like 3.5 out of 10. But Melissa, what did you think about it?
If I had to give it at a 10 score, off the top of my head, I would give it a 2. I wouldn't go for 0.
Wow.
And the only reason why it gets 2 is because I love Kate Mara and Reggie Cathy and Michael B. Jordan.
Yes.
Those 3 actors, love. You know, you will never find a bigger Friday Night Lights fan than me. So Michael B. Jordan, I mean, I'll watch anything with him in it, even though I had great apprehension about this movie. I tried to keep an open mind. I tried to go in not having expectations, but I had mentioned to you earlier, but I didn't get into why I felt this way. But I felt at some point in the movie, and it was pretty early on too. I think it was like right when they were meeting up in the library. Remember, Miles Teller is meeting Kate Mara for the first time in the library,
Yeah.
or that place. Okay, so right around then, and that happened pretty early in the movie, I got this distinct feeling of dread, like nobody in this movie wanted to be in it. You know, there was no joy for this project in their hearts from anyone. The script was bad. The direction was not great. Even the acting was not great. Like, even from some of my favorites, the acting was not that good. I felt like they were phoning it in. Miles Teller is pretty awful, I think. I don't know what kind of brooding Marlon Brando weirdness he was trying to bring, but it didn't come off right at all. And I don't know what he was going for, but that set the tone for the rest of the movie. And also there was it's an origin story where we don't learn anything about these characters.
Yeah.
You know, they don't round them out. I mean, okay, we know already, right? If we read the comic books or know about their origins, or even seen the first set of Fantastic Four movies, which look like Oscar contenders compared to this.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, we know what their stories are, but if I hadn't already known who these characters were, I would know nothing coming out of it. How do you do an origin story where you learn nothing about the characters' origins? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Totally.
I don't get it. I don't get what they were going for. It was dark and dreary. You can be dark and really mysterious and interesting, just as Christopher Nolan, you know?
Yep.
But this was dark and like England
Pointless?
in winter with the rain all the time. You know what I mean? It was really bad. And I don't understand what they were going for at all. But but it's inexcusable to have an origin story where we don't learn anything about the characters. And there was not enough Human Torch. He was barely in it. And when he was, they did nothing to show us what kind of person he was. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, he did some street racing. That tells us he's
A daredevil or something.
Yeah. That shows us he takes risks.
He didn't come in till like well over a half hour into the movie, I think. And then he was gone for large swaths of it again, and so was Ben Grimm. I mean, we saw him for what, 5 minutes on screen before he turned into the Thing, and then
Yep.
we barely saw the Thing. I don't understand. I think we saw the military personnel more than we saw the Fantastic Four.
No, we did.
we saw people in boardrooms more than we saw the main characters. I mean,
This movie, they completely missed the mark of who these characters are and how they're supposed to interact. And
and it was humorless too.
yeah,
No humor,
yeah,
none. And Human Torch is supposed to be kind of cocky and but funny too. I mean, he, helps bring some levity, and there was no levity. There was nothing, nothing. I can't even tell you. I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
You know what I think the problem is? That, and this is the same problem that happened with Blomkamp, is that based on one movie, we made them the next coming of Francis Ford Coppola, and then everything they've produced since has been utter crap. With Neil Blomkamp, I was so impressed with District 9. That I did like. I really liked the way it worked out. I loved the story. It was a new take on aliens and sci-fi. Great. And everybody wanted to crown him the new sci-fi king. And then we've gotten nothing but mediocre off of him afterwards. So he's been a disappointment. Josh Trank, on the other hand, I didn't like Chronicle. It didn't make sense to me. It didn't work for me. But everybody was already crowning him, this sci-fi director god. And they figured, we struck gold with this guy, we're going to give him this franchise. But there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the Fantastic Four. What makes the Fantastic Four great is that they're a family. And
yes,
they work to save each other constantly. What they didn't get right in the incarnation of the 90s is that, of the early 2000s, was that there wasn't that family dynamic. It was each person had their own individual spotlight, aside from crappy CGI and a story that just didn't work. I don't understand why it's so hard for Fox Studio to figure this out, right? And Ben Grimm is another. It's a problem because you have the Thing, and it's a problem. But my whole thing is that if you were willing to change the story of Sue Storm and Johnny Storm, why couldn't you change Ben Grimm's story? Have him control changing into the Thing. He doesn't have to be the Thing full time. If you want to make a change, make that it. I mean, it would work. Like he gets like the Hulk. He gets angry. He turns into a Thing. It would make sense. But if you have him as a Thing full time on a movie, it works great in comics. But on a movie, if you have him as a Thing full time, it just doesn't work because the audience can't connect. I haven't seen this movie, and I'm not going to anytime soon because I just didn't have confidence from the very beginning. And it's really disappointing because this shouldn't be hard. The Fantastic Four should not be hard. But I really hope this gets Fox to say, we've had our 3 iterations of Fantastic Four. It's time we give up. Let's sell our rights to Marvel, or at least collaborate with them like Sony's doing with Spider-Man. Because it's enough, man. I mean, Jesus, how can you get it so wrong so many times?
And what did you hear about them doing outside theaters over this
Yeah,
weekend?
it was. I believe it was at one of the Comic Cons. Fox Studios was handing out surveys to people, and the survey was basically asking them what they should do with the Fantastic Four. So that just reeks of all sorts of desperation. And I saw that on one of my on my Facebook feed, and all the comments on that one particular article, they were all saying, "Sell to Marvel, sell to Marvel, sell to Marvel. You've had your chance, you screwed it up. Sell to Marvel." So I hope Fox Studios at least will come to realize that they can't handle these characters. They might as well make some money off of it by selling it to Marvel. And I'm pretty sure Marvel would buy it easily because they'll be able to make movies on Silver Surfer, Galacticus. They could incorporate it to Guardians of the Galaxy. There's just so much opportunity for Marvel not to screw this up because they won't.
Yeah, Marvel could really do something with it, especially, I mean, having Reed Richards especially if you've read any of the newer stuff where, he's part of the Illuminati and he's really cold and calculating,
Yes.
and the stuff that the Illuminati are doing, just like, oh, we're gonna, blow up these other alternative Earths or whatever. It's like, well, it's just kind of what's gotta happen. It's like, Whoa, dude.
Yeah, and he's
Um,
one of the architects of Civil War. So I mean,
yeah.
how perfect would it have been to add the Fantastic Four earlier to incorporate them into the next phase of Marvel movies?
Yeah, it's okay. I think they can still recover from that.
Oh,
Yeah, I definitely want to see the rights revert. I think that what they should actually do with Fantastic Four is take it back to the 60s and do period pieces with them. And then if you want to, you can pull an Austin Powers or a Narnia and pretend it's like, oh, okay, well they got their superpowers in 1962. Now it's 1969 and they go through a portal and oh, they've been transported into the future into our day. And you can always go back and they have, flashback sequences where they're still doing stuff in the 60s, and you have kind of an infinite amount of time between 1962 and 1969 where they can do stuff, but then you can also have them playing in the modern MCU as well. I think that would make the most sense because they're, especially the visuals behind the Fantastic Four. I mean, you look at Galactus, you look at some of that other stuff, and it really, I mean, it looks like 60s Art Deco modern design, and that kind of sensibility doesn't really work in 2015, which is why I was kind of hopeful with this new iteration. It's like, oh, that's interesting. It's got this very futuristic techno vibe, but it's definitely not, uh, 1960s Jack Kirby inspired. I wonder if they could do this. I was hoping that they could, and no, they didn't. So, yeah. But what everyone really should go see is Shaun the Sheep. And you went and took Julia to see this
yeah.
just now, and I did not get to see it with my wife and kids. But a week ago, the Alamo Drafthouse put on a special preview screening along with a barnyard animal petting zoo.
Oh, sweet.
So they got to go see that, and then I went and snuck in and saw it yesterday because they just kept talking about how great it was. I was blown away by how much I love this movie, and here's why. Having just sat through Fantastic Four, Shaun the Sheep got everything right that Fantastic Four got wrong. They developed their characters, even though they had what, seven, eight, nine sheep that are fairly indistinguishable from each other, Mark. Uh, Several of them got their own personalities and their own things to do in their own business. No such character development in the Fantastic Four. They developed a great villain in the Animal Control guy. He had his own motivations that made sense. Doctor Doom in this movie, in the Fantastic Four, made no sense whatsoever.
And
Um,
they get away with him in 10 minutes.
yeah,
Like,
they
like
did.
he didn't become the villain until 15 minutes left in the movie, and it took him 10 minutes to solve that issue. I mean, what the hell? I don't.
It
Sorry, I
didn't.
can't complain
No.
anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing was, he was a relentless villain. Every time they thought they did in the animal control guy, he keeps coming back and he does something even more dastardly. And he's like the Terminator, and they do it all with zero dialogue.
No dialogue, right?
Oh, it's just so brilliant. And there's this great sense of family and camaraderie, and the rivalry between Sean and the dog is just perfect. If I had seen one iota of that kind of interplay between Johnny Storm and the Thing, I would have been like, okay, this got a glimmer of this movie right. There was none of that. Shaun the Sheep, absolutely amazing. And this may be heresy. I might have liked it more than Inside Out.
I God, that's so hard. It really is because it does tug at your heartstrings a bit. You know what I love? I love watching a movie that just makes me feel good. It,
Yes.
like I walk out with a smile. It just makes me feel good. Wall-E did that to me. Very little dialogue, but I was so into it. I cared about Wally and Eve. So great. And the same thing happened with Shaun the Sheep. A few years ago, before Julia started school, when I before dropping her off to daycare, we would always watch Timmy Time, which is basically Shaun the Sheep. I think Timmy is Shaun's cousin or something. Whatever, it's still a sheep. And there were short little episodes about 15 minutes each,
Yeah.
and we would watch them every day. And I had such a great time watching it with my kid. And now there's this movie, and I felt the same way, man. Watching it and leaving the theater, like we walked out with big old smiles. It was great. It was fantastic. And like you said, there was an actual villain, and they had to escape the villain. They had to save the farmer, and there was this communication going on without any words, and it was perfect. And how perfect was that scene where they harmonized with that one song?
Oh yeah.
That was so freaking awesome, and it sounded great. You know, it was a great bit in the movie, and I had read a comment earlier on how somebody said it's an okay movie, it's just like a long episode of Shaun the Sheep, like the TV series.
Yeah.
I don't even know that. Yeah, somebody said that, and no, that's not it. That's not it at all. It's a full movie, you know, and it was fantastic, and I had a lot of fun. And I think this is why I want to avoid Fantastic Four, because I think I'm just going to get angry, and I don't want to be angry in the theater.
But see, this is how. See, they took these characters that have been established, and there's some expectation in a part of the audience as to what those characters are like, and they did two things. They both translated that into a long-form film and made it work, and they made it 100% completely accessible to anyone who had never seen any other Aardman animation ever before. So it worked on so many levels, and the humor worked on so many different levels. It worked. Like kids were laughing at one thing, adults are laughing at other things. They're often laughing at the same things.
Mm-hmm.
I just, yeah, that it was such a good movie, and yeah, I've said it before. I'm gonna keep repeating it. Shaun the Sheep got everything right that Fantastic Four got wrong. Absolutely amazing.
Shame on Fox.
Shame on Fox.
Yeah.
Well, let's actually talk about Doctor Who. We've had enough.
Good characters this week.
It has been a while since we've recorded an episode, though, so this is good to be back together and good to be doing this. So, despite all of that time, I've still only managed to watch 5 episodes of Torchwood. But man, what if 5 episodes they were. Let's just. I don't know if there's a way to chop these up. I think we just have to talk about them as one whole thing. So, Torchwood, Children of Earth. My first impression, I wasn't sure how I felt about it up through the 3rd episode. I'm like, this is really cool. I want to see where they're going. And then when it got into the 4th and 5th episode, and a lot of what had happened in the 60s was revealed, and the real crisis was revealed about what was going on, I was just like, oh, okay, this is instant classic. This is amazing.
Yeah. To me, this is my all-time favorite Torchwood series, and it's actually one of my favorite series of any sci-fi show ever. It has the feel of old-school sci-fi, Twilight Zone type of thing. I really love the atmosphere that this series has. But there are so many levels to this series. You go from the corruption at government level, the unethical decisions governments make, both in the past and how it comes to haunt you, and how they continue making unethical decisions. You have hard choices people have to make when they're in charge of things, or when lives are at stake. That these hard choices that must be made. There's just so much. I think we should start from the very beginning, which would be when the children start talking in unison. We are coming, right?
First of all, freaky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get a children the Village of the Damned feel to it?
Yes.
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about kids doing anything innocent that makes me want to grab and say, "Shut the hell up! You're freaking me out."
Which is why whenever you go to see like a children doing ballet or something and they're all off kilter, it's like strangely reassuring.
Yeah.
So, Melissa, what are your thoughts about this?
The about
About the
creepy
entire
thing?
series?
Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed this. You know, the first two seasons of Torchwood for me were kind of wildly uneven in a lot of ways. And also, I not to get back into it, but I hated Owen. So um, this was Owen free, and it but better yet, it the entire season had, you know, a story, and you know, instead of like a weird thing of the week that they had to solve or contain or whatever, it all bled into each other. It was just one long story. So it was so different from what they'd done, and it was just so effective, you know? And also, can I say, if we're going to start at the beginning, I'm not sure exactly how funny this was supposed to be, if at all, but let's talk for just a second about Paranoid Gwen, because I was laughing, you know, like at the beginning, you know, when she's like, when they, you know, when somebody's at the door and she's like getting her gun, and you know what I mean? Like I know it wasn't really played for comedy, but for some reason I found this to be hilarious. Like, just, you know, everything making her jump, being suspicious about everything. I don't know why. I just thought it was funny. So maybe I'm just a mean bitch or something, but I thought it was really funny. You
I
know,
just
nobody
think
else thought it was funny?
yeah, you're maladjusted, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think they play it for laughs, but it ties in with what she says later on in future episodes, where she says, "This is what Torchwood does to you. It ruins you, or it ruins everything." And yeah, and at the very beginning, she can't trust anybody. She can't trust anything. She's seen too much, and this becomes a big problem, especially in the following season, which I really didn't like. The way it starts off is Gwen being extremely defensive because of what she went through in Torchwood. She can't trust anybody or anything. Unfortunately, that's part of. And I wonder, you know, is that what it's like working for the FBI or the CIA? Because they know stuff we don't know, us regular folk. So, I mean, do they live that life? Like they're always on, you know, looking over their shoulder and wondering if there's somebody around the corner. Well, you know, what kind of life is that?
Well, most of that stuff is way more compartmentalized, so you're never exposed to all of it if you're working on for one of them. But yeah, I imagine you still like carry around some weight with like the crap you've seen. So um, yeah, it's not good. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting, what you talked about the aspect of corruption in government, and it seemed like the message here was the only way to force government to be accountable and to not lie to us is to put them under surveillance and be like, hey, we recorded every single thing you say and we're going to broadcast it. And so you better, like, that's the only check that they have on them. And in an era of Edward Snowden and things like that, it seems kind of true, but I also, um, I, I don't know. It doesn't seem like, especially the issues we face where we're dealing with issues. Oh, hey, we're going to solve mass surveillance by putting the surveillors under mass surveillance as well. Like, that
Yeah.
doesn't.
But then you always have the issue: who watches the Watchmen?
Yep. No, that's, I mean, but that is the issue. That's the central question in Plato's Republic. Who watches the Watchmen,
Yeah, who watches?
and who's gonna guard the Guardians? And um, that's the question, or the answer is supposed to be the people in a democracy. But when the people don't have all of the information, I mean, this was awful. Like, what would actually happen to our society if this was put out there? It's like, okay, these aliens are demanding to take 10% of our children, or else everybody's going to die. Like, what would happen?
You know what bothered me? That I'm pretty sure those conversations are being had right now in the Iraq War. Exactly how many deaths are we okay with? How
Oh
many
yeah,
how many Iraqi children are we okay with? Raise your hand. 1,000, 2,000. You know they I that I can guarantee you they play fast and loose with that kind of stuff. Uh, but when the onus is on them, and this season kind of reminded me of that CCR song "Fortunate Son."
yep,
You know, where the senator's family is never going to be touched,
yep,
and we got that in this series because when it came to how do we choose the children, you know, well, let's all decide right here, right now. None of our families are touched.
yep,
And then there's that one lady who said, well, what about my nieces and nephews? So they kind of had to expand the scope. They're going to protect themselves, but they're going to screw over everybody else, all the so-called undesirables, which really pissed me off. I remember watching this, and I hated that prime minister so much.
Yeah,
Couldn't stand him. Right?
yeah,
It's-
that made my blood boil when they were determining which kids, and I'm like, oh my God, here comes the supposed troublemakers or the supposed dumb ones, and probably all the children of color, which means that our kids would be screwed, Marco,
yeah.
if I had any, of course. But
That we knew of.
what?
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Never mind.
If my little brown nephews would be in trouble. Okay, there you go. So anyway, yeah, like as a person of color, that's where your mind automatically goes, and you know that even if your kid is smart, they're probably undesirable because they're brown. To these people at the top, and just the flippant way though that they did it. It doesn't matter who the kid is, like unless it's like Damien from The Omen or something, then you can't be flippant with these children's lives. But they seem so at ease about making terrible decisions like this, and I know that they've probably been in that position before where they had to decide about maybe attacking or bombing someone in some country, and so there's going to be a certain amount of casualties. But when these are your countrymen, and you see them and they're all around you, and you're still so at ease about it. I don't understand how people like that exist and get sleep at night,
Well, you see exactly what they did to get to that point. They had a conversation. They're like, oh, well, we had a conversation. We aren't going to refer to them as children anymore. They're units.
Yeah.
It's like that's what they have to do. They completely have to dehumanize them. And who did they go after first? Oh, well, we found 60,000 children who are children of undocumented workers and refugees.
Refugees, yeah.
And things like that, and no one's going to miss them, so we can get rid of them, and it's okay. Which was, sadly, there wasn't a racial element to it when Jack did it, but that was his original choice too. He's like, well, we're going to pick 12 kids from an orphanage because
There was something racial. They were Scottish. Yeah, and English hate the Scots.
okay,
English hate a lot of people. The English hate a lot of people, but they really spit on the Scots still, and which is weird because they refuse to let them go from the UK. But I guess when it comes to in terms of economies, they're all for Scotland. But when it comes to marrying into them, I guess it's a big no-no. But there was definitely something racial about it.
Okay, that's true. That is true. That
it's not racial so much as cultural. I think we're using the wrong term here, probably.
No, it's racial because the Scots consider themselves a different race from the English, which is weird because they're all probably
different culture.
Interbred Saxons.
Yeah. I don't know. All you white people look the same to me.
You're all freckled redheads, every one of you.
Yeah, no, seriously. But no, that's an interesting question about race in and of itself. And if you like delve into racial studies, it's like what makes up race, and it's like, well, the Irish were a separate race on the U.S. Census up until like 1910 or 1920, and people from Southern Europe were distinctly not white before the 1950s, and it's all a completely made up construct, which is not to say that we're all the same and we all have the same cultural experience, but that when it comes to racism, it is a made up construct, and it's all about power and power politics. And in this case, deciding whose children to give to the aliens to have them get their heroin fix. So that's just evil, and of course that's exactly what would happen. The tragedy then with what happened with am I saying his name right? Frobisher?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I kept missing that. I'm like, oh, it's Peter Capaldi. I couldn't remember his name. But
John Frobisher.
they essentially turn him into the sacrificial lamb, and they're like, oh no, the government has to be seen that some of our children were taken too, and that we were accountable. So yeah, your kids are going to get taken. And the choice he made to kill them and kill his wife and kill himself, I don't know how I feel about that, but I can't say he made the wrong choice, knowing what he knew.
Right.
That was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking.
They filmed it perfectly because there was like silence. There was no music. You saw the hallway with the door at the end, and he closes it. 2 shots real quick. You assume those are the kids.
3 shots.
Wasn't there 2 and then followed by 2 more? I thought.
Yeah,
No.
there were 2 really quick, one a little split second later,
and then a
so
longer pause.
It was like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah. See, because that affected me a lot. That's the way I remember it too. Because the bang bang, you assume those are the kids, and then he must have taken one extra look at his wife. Like, he wanted to get the kids out of the way so they wouldn't be terrified, because you can't kill one and then wait a few seconds while the other, pees himself knowing what you did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like that pause right before he obviously killed his wife, it just, because he must have taken a second there to take that last look or something, and then
look at her and say, I'm sorry, or something.
Yeah, like you can only imagine, since they didn't show us, and I'm glad they did it, because, I think the imagination is much more vivid here. What was going through his mind, and what kind of look they exchanged. Like, did she look at him like, you did the right thing, like she was accepting what he did, or was it a look of terror, like, what the hell are you doing, or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
All the possibilities started going through my mind during that scene, and the fact that they didn't have any music or any background noise, and it was just so cold, those shots ringing out, that really affected me. And I did not like this character at all.
Right.
Until I realized what a patsy he had been made into, and then I started sympathizing with him, even though he was still kind of an SOB,
Yeah.
I was I didn't empathize with him completely, because he said his first answer to his problem was kill everybody.
Yeah.
So it's hard to empathize with somebody like that, but I would never ever want anybody, no matter how bad they've been to me, to have their children killed. I mean, I can't bring myself to that level.
Even the devil loves his children. I mean,
Yeah. And it was a bit of karma, I guess. But even then, I mean, his children had nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
But that this karma came back.
He personally reaped what he sowed, but it wasn't fair that the kids had to pay the price.
Right. I would rather him kill himself or sacrifice himself, run in front of the soldiers and start opening fire, and therefore alert everybody else that this is a sham. But then it's like Andy said, what would I do knowing that my kids are going to be sacrificed and they're going to live their entire lives as this drug bag for an alien species? I wouldn't want my kid to live through that. That is such a hard thing. And no matter how bad he was, I mean, the kids don't deserve that. So yeah, you're right. That scene, and they played it perfect. No music. It was cold. It was a cold, cold, cold scene, and it was perfect. And I have to give Russell T Davies major props for this season, and especially the last two episodes. I mean, he did fantastic. Um, I didn't empathize with him, but I sympathized with Frobisher, and Russell T Davies got me to do that. I didn't
Yeah.
think I was ever going to sympathize with that character because
Yeah.
I just hated him. I hated him. The fact that he was one of the ones who said, let's be careful to take care of our families," and he started issuing out numbers, acceptable numbers for children to be sacrificed. I couldn't like the guy at all. But that scene, I at least sympathized with him, and that was a tough one. That really was tough.
Because you ask yourself, what would I do if these were my children? And that's the question that no one in government stopped to ask themselves for 2 seconds, because then the answer is, oh, well, we're going to fight like hell. We're not going to, we don't care. Like, we understand how terrible this is. So if it were to be some sort of a random, just a random 10% taken, like, how do we, uh, you know, if we can't guarantee that it's not our children, then the obvious answer is we have to fight this. And it's awful. Now, here's my question. Here's an alien species capable of a lot of things. They're able to control all of the children of the earth and make them speak at once, but they can't just, like, carry them away all at once, like do a massive transport of, like, oh, we're just going to take 10% of the kids and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, they can only do it from certain points. I mean, I'm quibbling here because I know that that takes away, like, the whole, like, gut punch of the narrative, but I'm just like, those are some incompetent, drugged out aliens.
Well, they are drugged out.
Mhm.
That's the other thing is, like, we
Maybe
gave
one
them,
drug addict that thinks clearly.
yeah, we gave them 12 kids in the 60s. Now they're back for more and they want 10%. Like, nobody thought to say, like, these guys are junkies. They're going to keep coming back, and if we give it to them, then they're going to keep coming back. And no one thought to say, "Oh, they're addicted to us. They're not going to actually kill all of us. They will keep because they need us. They want us. We're valuable to them, so they won't kill everyone. They're
Right.
threatening to do it, but they'll kill enough of us that they think they can make us comply. But that just means that we need to fight." So
Yeah. The answer is gather your nerds, hide them, send everybody else underground into the sewers, and get your nerds to work on, something that'll help you, which ended up happening anyway.
which is what Jack did. Yeah,
Right, right. So you don't have to capitulate. And the fact that they capitulated and they just turned over is disgusting. And the reason they did it is because it wasn't costing them anything. They saw this as a problem solver. They were getting rid of undesirables. They said people who live off of benefits. We can take care of that. We're overpopulated as it is. We can take care of that.
oh my gosh, that guy.
Yeah, it's such a hole way to approach this, where the answer clearly is fight, fight, gather your
Yeah.
smarts, take
Mhm.
care of them, and fight.
And Jack's eventual answer was the exact opposite of what they were doing. It's not spare my child and take someone else's. It's I have to sacrifice the one that is closest to me,
Yeah,
and that's awful.
the
That is just awful.
the feels right there, dude.
Mhm.
The first time I saw it, I had to bite my lip because I was like, I can't imagine that. I would be the coward that says no, not my kid. I'm not that strong. But he knew it was either his grandson or millions of people, millions of children. And unfortunately, he had to make that call. It's such a hard decision to make. Like, what
Mhm.
would you do?
It's karma. I mean, he gave away
Right.
12 undesirables, and so he's forced to sacrifice his own in order to put that down. it's so beautifully poetic and Greek, and it's just, I mean, uh, it's just amazing. It's beautiful storytelling, and I'm amazed at how good this got. Like I had no idea at the beginning. I'm like, oh well, this is interesting, but I had no idea it was gonna get like that epic.
Can we pour one out real quick for poor Yanto?
Yes, we
Oh,
can.
geez, Yanto.
How
Oh,
can you guys always forget about these things?
yeah. No, I was thinking about bringing him in earlier, but then we jumped into Jack. But
Yeah,
Yanto's
I
death,
mean, it,
that
it
hurt.
that hit me like Wash from Firefly.
Right.
Seriously,
Yes.
I mean, I was like crying, and I don't cry that often, but it yeah, that got
Yeah.
me. It was like, oh, and I almost wanted to be like, damn you, Joss Whedon, and then like, oh, it wasn't Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
If there is anyone who didn't deserve their fate, well, they all didn't, but the one guy who's just a good guy
Yeah,
was Yanto. He's just a good person, like Wash. Wash was a good
yeah,
person, a great spirit, added plenty to the team. Both of them, Wash and Yanto, like their deaths are. That's why it's so hard to take their deaths. That's why it's so tragic and takes the air out of you because they're just good people with good souls, and they've never hurt anybody. And yeah, that one hurt, and it hurt Jack Harkness because he kept screaming, "Not him, not him." He gave up his demands because I remember he went up to the alien and said that we're gonna fight. And then when Yanto's dying, he says, "I take it back," or he said, "I take it back," or "I'm gonna," or something like that. That he was taking it back. That that's just all the sads right there.
Yeah. It was just absolutely awful.
and I remember thinking, damn you, Reese, for wanting to finish the beans and not leaving. Because remember when they were trying to make a reason
It's true.
for
Oh, yeah, they were
to
supposed to have a
leave so they
tryst,
could
right?
get it on? They're like, it'll take about 20 minutes, and he's like, 30 minutes. You know?
30 minutes. And
And Reese never left because a damn pot of beans. And
he's like, oh, the beans are almost done. They're like, oh, the beans. You're just like, ah.
And
Yeah.
I just remember after he died thinking, damn you, Reese, you know, like they could have had one last moment together or something, you know. But yeah, that was rough. That was one of the out of all the shows I've watched where people have died, you know, and it made me sad. That one was one of the worst, right up there, like Wash from Firefly territory.
Yeah, that was a tough one. It was.
Yeah, that is definitely like one of the most tragic character deaths. And then the fact that they they went and spent so much time trying to guard his niece and nephew. Like that was just awesome. It reinforced the whole like principle of, well, we have to save the one child and banding together to take care of our own against even against insurmountable forces. And it was great when they're like actually taking the kids out the back and trying to get them to go hide, and Yantu's brother-in-law and like the rest of his soccer hooligan neighbors like go after the cops, and Andy is in there, and he's
The
like,
cop. Yeah.
yeah, Andy the cop is like going up against the military with their SWAT gear and everything. And you're just like, yeah, yeah, and then they just get taken down, and it's awful. But it's like, but that's not the point. They were doing what they could, even against insurmountable forces, to try and give their kids a chance, and that's what this was all about. It was great.
Yeah. This season, God, I just really, really love this season. And as much as I've crapped on Russell T Davies, I give him major props for this one because I think this is one of the greatest examples of sci-fi and how good sci-fi can be when it's done right. Which uh, explains why I'm so disappointed with the following season.
Yeah, that's a bad follow-up.
Yeah, because when you finally get to that one, and we waited so long for it, and then when it finally comes, you're like, this is the shit we're getting. Are you
And then,
kidding me?
because it was produced here in the States, it's just more embarrassing, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but Davies wrote and produced it, so
Yeah,
it's on him.
and it just proves that he is so up and down. Like, if you watch
Uneven.
Children of Earth, and like, let's say you watch Doctor Who season 3, which we all agreed was not very good for the most part, other than like Blink, and then you watch this, you would never guess it was the same man behind both.
Right.
Never. You know, he's so uneven in his application. He's either like mad genius or just like tired, incompetent. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
and it seems like there's no real in between very much. It's, you know, he's either firing on all cylinders or he's out of gas. And yeah, he was firing on all cylinders. If I had to have any quibble about like this entire season, I think maybe less like Exorcist pea green soup, you know, from the aliens. Like,
Oh,
you know,
Yeah. Oh my
that
God.
was a little cheesy. But other than that, I can't complain about anything other than Yonto dying. But you know, uh,
even the
but
gay jokes were funny.
huh?
The gay joke where the missing child that grew up into the crazy old man, where he starts smelling, he's like, he's a queer, or he calls him
Oh.
queer, and Jansen's like, oi! He's like, it's not 1965 anymore.
Yeah, there was good humor too. You know, they put the right amount of levity in this. You know, even though it was very serious and kind of dark, they balanced everything so well. I mean, really, it was just a great season of television, and it proves that you don't need to do 22 episodes to have a really great season. Because I think sometimes 22 is just way too many. I think Arrow proved that this last season, that
Yes.
22 is
Yes.
way too much sometimes. You don't have to do 22 every year. You can do 5 here, 13 there, as long as it's good, you know, as long as it's good. But yeah, I loved it. Loved.
Yeah, I'd normally say like that's the benefit of the British system where you don't have to make a new series if you don't want to, if you don't have a good idea. And yet we look at what Russell T Davies hath wrought with other seasons of Torchwood and Doctor Who, and it's like it's very obvious that they went ahead without clear ideas of what they wanted to do and what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Whereas instead, it really should be they wait around until they have the best ideas and put them together. Um, Unfortunately, tragically, even trying to do something like that, like what they did with the David Tennant uh, mini episodes that we covered last time, it just you know those were all dumb, and it was like 6 months in between each one of them. It's like what's the point of waiting that long for this? So you wish that you would get better results, but your mileage may vary. But yeah,
And that's the legacy of Russell T Davies. I mean, he can be brilliant one moment and just downright idiotic the next. I mean, the, we have to agree that this is the best episode, best series of Torchwood.
Oh
And
yeah.
in my opinion,
Long time.
absolutely.
it's one of the best seasons of any sci-fi show. That's just my personal opinion. And this came from a guy that made an episode where a guy ends up falling in love with a piece of tile. It's just
I knew you were gonna bring that one up again.
yeah, dude. I mean, he's so frustrating. It just drives me crazy, man. So what I want, and it's because of the strength of this season, what I want is for Torchwood to come back, but I want John Barrowman to be in charge of the program, running it with his vision in mind. I'd love to see more Torchwood, and I would love for Torchwood to come back as it was, an institution. When you see the next season, Andy, it's no longer an institution. I'm not even sure why they call themselves Torchwood anymore. It's a mess. The following season is just a giant mess. I would love for it to
So much potential.
huh?
You know, it had so much potential. That's the
Yeah, in the beginning. In the beginning, it kind of gets
It
you.
had funny at the beginning, but
Yeah.
then it quickly devolved. It was
It really quick, really good. And I kept lying to myself every week, like, oh, next week's gonna be better. Oh, this is when this is when it's gonna get good. Until the last 3 weeks, I was like, screw this, I freaking hate it. Like, I don't even care if it gets better.
You had to make up reasons to watch it, like you had to convince yourself.
But I want Torchwood back. I want it back as an institution, like unit, and I think it deserves that. And I would love to see it come back, especially if we're going to be getting stuff like this. Oh, and we should mention Gwen's video where she says, "I've often asked, about the doctor. Why doesn't he come in these situations?" And she said, "I know the answer. Sometimes he must look at Earth and turn away in shame." And she's right, because we can be really stupid, horrible, violent towards each other, and who would want to help us? Like, really?
Is the doctor Jesus? No, I'm just kidding.
No, he does
Like-
sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
No, well, that felt very like messianic. Like you're really putting a lot of faith in the doctor there. That like, oh well, he knows what's up. I hate to say it, but like my experience of going through Doctor Who at this point is he seems like kind of a really smart and lucky bungler who chances onto things and like shows up when he's like cosmically needed, but he doesn't have a master plan of like where he's going and what he's doing. He's just
That's accurate. Yeah. I agree.
A bungler probably isn't the right word. There's probably a better term for that, but
He does bumble into a lot of situations, though.
Yeah.
So I think it's fairly accurate.
Yeah. So it's like that almost makes it sound like he's space Jesus, like out there watching over the Earth at all times, and like, okay, this is something that's going on. I guess I should go down and fix it. And
Or he's Jesus' screw up kid brother, the lesser Christ,
something like that.
Jimmy Christ.
Something like that. Yeah. So, well, it'll be interesting to get into Matt Smith now and see
Yes.
see this with those eyes. Next week we're going to have a really special episode. My daughter and Mark's daughter have been bugging us for ever since basically the beginning of the podcast to do an episode where they can be on and talk about them watching Doctor Who as well. So we're going to have them on, and they're going to talk about the first couple of episodes of Matt Smith. And we're going to go up through episode 7, Amy's Choice. So the first seven episodes of season 5. And hopefully, I think if we keep going at a pace of 7 or 8 episodes every week, then by the time the next season shows up with Peter Capaldi, we will be completely done. Fingers crossed. But until then, we will just keep on keeping on. Thanks, Mark and Melissa, for being here as always. You're keeping me on the straight and narrow with all this stuff, and thanks everyone at Big Shiny Robot, especially Tom Winkley, for hosting our website. And we will see you all next time.
Bye-bye, Provo.
Bye.
And that's over.
Hey, I got a real good